Hey, everybody. Welcome to Chez Davis live. Just Brendan for now. Susie's upstairs, but the timing's a little crazy. I'm going to talk about that as we get rolling here. Um, I was having problems. I was starting on time, but I was having problems. YouTube would not let me start the live. Don't know why. Don't take it personally, but things are crazy. So I thought we were going to do it upstairs because the baby's taking a nap, and I thought that we would do it where we do it normally at the kitchen table, and then the living room is our daughter's room, basically. So I thought that we would do it in there, and then when the baby woke up, Susie or I would deal with the baby, and we kind of tag team. But Susie thinks the baby's going to wake up any moment, and then she'll want to have a snack. And so Susie may pop down here. And if you want to if you have a question or you specifically want to ask something for Susie, please put it in the chat here, and I'll see it. And I can literally, I'll text her. I'll text her upstairs if she's not down here, and get Susie to join us. But thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Gotta catch my breath. Oh my gosh. So give me half a second because I got my outline. 1 second. So what we're going to do today, let me talk about that. In broad strokes. First, I'm going to talk about what this last week has been like, because it has been a week, that's for sure. It's since we saw you last week, it's been like a crazy full week. So we'll talk about that in some detail. Then I want to just say a few things, touch on a few of the videos that we released, and we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up, which I'm really excited about as well. We have some things that I think you'll like. Some of them are addressing things that people have asked about a lot. Some of them are addressing things that we know are important, issues or things for people who want to move to France, or if you want to come for a long stay. Maybe you don't plan to relocate your life forever, but you want to come for a long stay. And so these are some things that are helpful for you. And then we have some fun stuff that's in the works. Now, I talked about and teased a bit of this on the podcast. If you're new here or don't otherwise know, we do a podcast that airs Tuesday. It goes live at 6 p.m. Tuesday nights, Paris time. And that's generally me. Susie, she wants to do it on her own or do it with me. That's great. But the timing of doing it is a little tricky, because usually the time that we have to do that within our week so far, it's pretty much when the baby is trying to go to sleep, and Susie helps Jenny get to sleep. So the podcast, I won't belabor the point because most of you watching this are familiar with the channel, but the podcast is really super unfiltered, and it's where we talk about things, where I talk about things with letting my proverbial hair down. My actual hair, hair ties are cheaper than a good haircut. Plus I'm just going to grow it out. What I don't grow out is going to fall out on its own. So I'm just growing it out again. I'm an old rocker at heart, so I like to try to be presentable, but I'm going to grow it out. Now, I didn't even have time to pour my Coke Zero, so you'll pardon me while I pour a beverage here. And you see my lights in these glasses. That's a charming look. So we'll talk about the things that we released, and on the podcast specifically, I talk about some of these things that are coming up, and I'll recap that here to a degree, and maybe say a few more things about it. And I have an update on something that I said was coming. And then we'll look ahead to what's coming next. Again, there's some cool things in the works. I think you will enjoy just some generally fun things. They are European specific, France specific in some cases, European specific in other cases, but it's the kind of stuff that I think you will enjoy. And I'll say a little bit more about it as we dig into this. And then lastly, we'll dig into Q&A. We'll do a deeper look at some of the comments from the previous week and things that we didn't answer in full we will, I'll take my glasses off. That glare is bothering me. So things that we weren't able to answer in full, I'll give you some more answers right now. But the the plan as we roll. Let's first talk about this week that was. So this is a little quick life update. In about 5 minutes, we'll get into the videos and then we'll start getting into what's up next and then the Q&A. So last week, our baby Geneva, which is short for Jenny, is short for Geneva. I am freaking exhausted. If you can't tell, I'm less exhausted than I was when I recorded the podcast. I don't think it drags too much because I did actually edit out some yawns and some moments where I just really wandered very far from where I was trying to be. But last week on Friday, if you're eating, mute me for 10 seconds. Jenny, we got a message from the daycare last Friday that Jenny started vomiting profusely after she had lunch 3 times. They let us know. We ran and grabbed her 3 more times there and all over me, which was great. Once we got her sorted, and we changed her like 3 times once we showed up, I think. I cleaned myself up as best as I could. They managed to find a man's t-shirt laying around, and it was actually it was like a French fashion brand called Naf Naf. And it was a really cool shirt, but it was about 2 sizes too small for me. Now I've changed my diet and eating habits and basically stopped drinking, and I'm back on a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. And so I've lost about 18 pounds in the last 3 weeks, which is, I won't bore you to tears because most people don't care about it. If you care to discuss a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, we can do that in another thread. But I would think you can ask your questions here, but I won't go on about it too much. I've done it before with great success. I went from 305 pounds to actually got too thin because I'm 5'11". I went from 305 pounds to 132 pounds in 10 and a half months. And I started about 2 months before what became known as the COVID pandemic, which I think, don't know, no way to prove this, but I think it helped me because, among other things, that really boosts your immunity once you get into the groove of that. And I never felt better. And anyway, I'm back on that. Now. So anyway, my point is they found this t-shirt. It was 2 sizes too small for me. So who cares how I look? My daughter's sick. I'm just saying that I looked absolutely ridiculous. And there's still some vomit on me. Sorry, that's more than 10 seconds. I mentioned it again. I'm done mentioning gross bodily issues. But the director of the daycare rushed us to the hospital instead of us trying to take 2 buses. I mean, she just said, let me drive you, in French, but she was like, let me drive you. I said, thank you so much. That's great. And this actually ties into our big anchor video, the big video on Sunday nights, as we kind of consider it like the anchor for the week. And then, then there's podcasts and live, and there's like a fun thing on Friday. So the main video, like the main feature video, I'll just go ahead and tell you, it's comparing U.S. and French healthcare costs with real examples, and for real examples of things we've done, plus all kinds of things that maybe don't apply to us, but that may apply to you, and common things that people need to have done, what the costs are, and how all that works. I'm getting into the weeds on that. I've got it all outlined. I just have time. I need time to record it. I'll do that tomorrow and chop it up, and I'll let it slow roast in the YouTube algorithm oven until it releases Sunday at 6 p.m. Paris. So kind of got ahead of myself, but I'm mentioning this to say that our experience, we've been to this hospital one other time where Jenny had gastroenteritis, which, kids get this from other kids and whatnot. So she was the canary in the coal mine at her daycare. I don't know. There were a couple of kids missing when we took her back on Monday who might have had it. But she probably got it from a kid who had it on vacation, got better, came back, but was carrying the virus because most of the kids took a vacation and traveled at different times, and we've just been here. Anywho, 3 hours at the emergency room, at the intake/triage room, 3 physicians plus a nurse. There are 2 in there the whole time, and then people rotating in and out to check on things. Doing all the tests, little blood draw, tiny little finger blood draw, and hooking up the little meters to, for pulse and everything, and blood pressure, and and the checking eyes, ears, nose, throat, all the parts and all the cavities. And uh, so between the triage room and then the actual treatment room, sorry, the window's open. Hopefully that plane's not too horribly loud. Hopefully my voice is louder than the plane out there. Um, Between all of this, we were there 3 hours, and the diagnosis was, yeah, she's got nothing else wrong with her. She's got gastroenteritis. Here's the treatment, which is basically, lots of fluids, electrolytes, fruit compote with no sugar added, juice with no sugar added. You know, don't give her anything solid for a day or two. See how she does. She was fine. She's been fine. She's great. She's awesome. She's 100% back to running the household. But 3 hours in the emergency room. Now we have our carte vitale, of course. So we're in the French healthcare system. So what we paid for 3 hours in the emergency room, there were 5 different doctors who touched her, looked at her, plus a nurse or two floating around. 3 hours, all those healthcare professionals, all these tests, all this stuff, lab work, blood work and stuff. 19 euros. Now I misquoted it. I did a community post. I said it was 19 euros 65 cents. I'm afraid I misstated that. It was 19 euros 36 cents. 19 euros 36 to be European about this. That's the cost. That's what it costs. There's no bill coming. There's no, here's your bill for $6,000 or something for 3 hours in the ER, plus all these doctors and everyone billing, plus all the lab work for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Nope. 19 euros 36. That's the bill. So yeah, France wins compared to the US in terms of healthcare. Hands down. But I'll go into this in detail in the video, trust me. So luckily Jenny's great. The next part, the daycare adaptation. So why this live is later than normal and why the next lives will be later than normal is because, sadly, because this house that we're renting is in a new neighborhood. It's a new city, technically. We're 3 blocks over the line from our old city where we used to live. So we had to apply for new daycare. And we didn't get into the city one like we've been in, which was very sad at first. First, we wanted to stay where we were, and they really tried to work it out, actually. The director of that daycare loves Jenny, staff. She loves the place. We were really trying to, they were trying to sort of sweet talk the mayor in the old city and people, and they were just like, sorry, there's so much demand. We were very lucky to get a spot. They only have placement for 1 in 4 people who apply for that system within the whole system, much less at a municipal daycare, because there are other options. So we got a spot, and we know we were very fortunate. I think they took pity on us because we were a newly immigrant couple and learning the language. I mean, they knew we had a lot of challenges when we moved here, just coming to France, trying to figure everything out. So fortunately, we had that available to us that let us get Jenny started with socialization and learning French, in the French environment all day, and getting the best food with a private chef. And these daycares are next level awesome here. So at this new place, we're in one that's called a crèche parentale. Crèche is the French word for daycare, if you don't know that. And a crèche parentale means the parents are involved. There is a professional staff, who actually operates it day to day, but the parents help. The parents have to do, each family has to do the equivalent of 1 full day. I thought it was 1 full day a week. They're like, what? So we can't have a job or work? How does this work? The parents, they break the days up into, basically before lunch and after lunch. Like they break them into half days. And now that I'm in the system and am engaging with this, they send out a grid ahead of time, and you pick your slots. And it tells you, there's like a little chart that says, how many slots your family has to pick. And for the new families, we only have to pick 2 slots, 2 half days to make 1 full day. The families who were experienced, a lot of them have 3 or even 4 slots to pick. And the senior, like the president of the daycare, the secretary, the people who are like on the board, because it's all managed by parents. And there is a director, and she, is in charge. She's a professional, director of daycares and works for the city. But the parents do the planning, organization, budgeting, scheduling, organizing events and activities, upkeep. And then the families go and do these shifts where it's mostly, as I understand it, it's mostly cleaning. It's like helping clean up the kitchen because there's a professional chef, but like helping clean the kitchen, take out the trash, clean up, helping watch kids, depending on what's happening during when your shift is. I imagine that the morning shift is a lot of helping deal with the kids, and then the afternoon shift is probably a lot of cleaning stuff up, because it overlaps with nap time, and it's probably a lot of taking out trash and cleaning. I've had some absolutely horrible jobs in my like working my way through college. I mean, I worked in the South Georgia heat, working in a warehouse that stored stuff and put stuff on rail cars and Pampers, the not Pampers, sorry, I've got Pampers on the brain because we buy a lot of Pampers here, but it was I think it was Johnson and Johnson, but it was like paper towels and toilet paper, and all the little dust particles when you open up like a package of toilet paper, those tiny little dust particles are from Kleenex tissues. I think it was Procter and Gamble actually, but yeah, P&G was who was nearby. But I've loaded rail cars, and yeah, they have forklifts and stuff. But I was like they had people who would get up in there and like square, kind of like block. You know how grocery workers stock the shelves and they block it where it's all just so on the shelf. There are people who do that when you put stuff in a rail car, like the forklift driver, like picks up the pallet, yank, 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 junk, and slides it in the general direction. And then there are people who get in there, and man or woman handle it where it needs to go. I've crawled around on top of boxes of like tissue with like full of these clouds of these particles in South Georgia heat in the summer, like 100% humidity, like 130 degrees inside these rail cars. I've done that job. So I'm not afraid of like cleaning up after some babies and taking out some trash or washing some dishes. I that's a vacation compared to what's in my DNA. I won't wear this shirt, but that's easy. I'm down to help out however we can. So the first adaptation period was today, and it's pretty cool how it works. If you're not interested in kid stuff, I'll be off kid stuff in a second, but this is our life, and you're watching our channel, so enjoy. Some of you are here specifically for this, so that's why I want to mention it. Plus, it explains everything schedule wise. So they do this thing called an adaptation period. I mentioned this previously that this was coming up, and I'm blanking. A few people commented on it. There's one woman in particular made a comment. I think it was Lynn Mayer who made a comment. I may be mistaken, but just basically said that sounds really great that they have this period where it's like a ramp up. It's like a warm up. You don't just day one drop the kid off, see ya, and leave them there for a full day. They don't do that here. They do this adaptation period where you start over 2 weeks. You start where you're there with your child for like an hour and a half, and there's a staffer who's dedicated to that. That becomes like this staffer is like Jenny's, adult at the crèche for the term of this. So they call it a referent. It's not really surrogate parent, but it's the closest thing to that I think that makes sense. Where this person is specifically the one who Jenny will learn to look to her, and when she needs something, and that woman will be paying attention to Jenny plus her three other kids that she specifically, that's like that are her focus. And of course, other staffers help, and everybody collaborates. But so we got to spend an hour and a half with her and then the other staff and playtime. And I was so impressed. These kids, and also the middle, so the babies, middles, and bigs are all in the same place, but the babies are segregated into their own section, and they don't mix with the middles and bigs, but the middle and big kids are all together, right? So kids who are ballpark of 2 and ballpark of 3 years old are all together, and then less than like a year and a half old and babies, they're all in their own little play area with different caregivers. But I was so impressed with how polite and well mannered and kind some of these kids were. They were coming over and they were curious about me and Susie too, and we're both wearing like these Hawaiian shirts today, so I think we got there. We're visually interesting and we're new people, so they want to come over, and we're laughing with people and having fun, and Jenny's having fun with us. So it was a good vibe basically at the daycare today. But I was so impressed that so many of these kids came over and like sort of want to get to know her and would like bring a toy that they were playing with and they'd like give it to her and they'd play with her. And it was cool, and Jenny is a bit shy, kind of a default phrase that Susie repeats a lot when we're introducing her to new people. If she sort of recoils or backs away, it's like, elle est un peu timide, she's a little timid, she's a little shy. But man, she warms up. I mean, she's personality plus as soon as she's comfortable. So she's going to be just fine in terms of the world and socialization. But so she was not her full bore Jenny self today with all the other kids. There was a time where all the other kids were in a third, like a middle room. The babies are in the back room. Then there's like a middle play area, and then there's the main room in the front for just the middles and digs. And there was a time where it was just us and the caregiver. But these adaptation periods are great because they give the child time to get used to the place and the people, the adults and the other kids, and and let them get to know her and observe her, because the staffer is like a trained, these are all trained people, right? I mean, they have backgrounds in childhood development, and they're trained childhood educators. And so it lets her observe Jenny and ask us questions besides all the 1,000 questions we answered on countless forms that we submitted over the period, because people of the France, right? France loves them. They love them a form. They love a big form to be filled out, and we have done a lot of that. But so it went great. And so over the next 2 weeks, we're building up to where it's this for a few days where the time shifts at different times, because I won't bore you too much with the details, but more than I have, if I have. But it gets to where we go with her and we stay like maybe the first half hour, and then we leave for an hour, and then we come back for another bit. And then that increases the amount of time. It gets to where we drop her off, leave her for like 3 hours, and then come back, pick her up. And it gets to where we drop her off, we're gone half a day. Then we drop her off, we come back at the end of a full day. And all along, our referent is observing and reporting back to us, and to the director of the daycare. Okay, here's how she's doing. These are maybe her challenges or things that she's not cool with. And then here's what she's great in these areas. So they'll adjust it. The back half of the schedule is kind of fungible. It's kind of flexible depending on how things roll. But yeah, it's pretty good. The food looked awesome. And the chef, because the kids are different ages, there are a couple younger than Jenny, and then a few her age, and then a lot that are a year older. So they all had different food, different kind of meals, and a few kids probably had special meal needs. But man, the food looked, just in general, they don't mess around in France. Now, granted, we've only had the 2 experiences, but so far, from what I've seen, I mean, these chefs at the daycare, I mean, they could go work in any restaurant, I'm sure, like any nice restaurant. They could go work there, and they are legit chefs with training and credentials. And, we used to say at the old daycare, when we see the menu posted, it's like, wow, she's eating way better than we are for ourselves. But the last bit of curveball time wise, because these adaptations, as I was saying, depending on the schedule for the day, they either finish a little after noon or a little after 1 p.m. So 2 p.m. is kind of the new time for these lives for now. And I can see a few people popping on and off, joining I can't see like who's on here, just so you know. That doesn't show if you haven't done a live stream. I can't see who's on. So unless you comment in the chat, I can't. I don't know you're here specifically. I never know who's here specifically unless they tell me later. And this goes live. This goes up as a replay the instant I'm finished. But so my point of saying that is I don't know who's tuning in now or will watch it later, but I'll see that only when you comment. But the 2 p.m. is going to work for the next 2 weeks, and I may have to adjust depending on how the adaptation adjusts to Jenny in real time. I may have to adjust when we do these lives. The last curveball is that Susie's been looking for a job, and if she was down here, she might not want me to, she probably doesn't want me to get into any details, but there's something that's pending. And if it happens, she would have to go to London for a week for job training. The job would be here, but she would have to go to London to where they have a currently operational place of what they're doing here. That's being, opened up here in Metro Paris. So she would have to go to London for a week, which means I'm full-time Mr. Mom, which, I mean, yes, it'll be hard and, but I'm looking forward to it when it happens. I hope she gets that job for her because I know she'd enjoy having a job again. And, frankly, we could use it. Have I mentioned you can buy us a coffee? You don't have to, but we created one of those buy us a coffee links if you'd like to support the channel and what we're doing. But so depending on if Susie's here, like right now, I'm able to still do this because she's up there waiting to see if Jenny wakes up. But if that travel curveball comes up, then all bets are off. I may try to do the live on my phone as I'm wrangling the baby, and that'll be an interesting experience for all of us. So let me move into talking about what we put out this week a little bit. And as I said, we'll get into questions in detail once I kind of just go through this at a sort of a high level. So our anchor video this last week was Susie's residence car drama video. That is, I think that's resonating with people. We did have some really random comments, but that's because YouTube apparently likes it. And again, under the hood algorithm behind the scenes kind of stuff I'll share is that, you can see, you have an idea of how often people like click on your thing and how long, how long they watch what you put up. And of course, there are the likes and comments. Anybody can see that. We choose to make it so you can see all that because we want to see it. And it drives me nuts when I go to a channel and you can't see likes and comments. But the creator can choose to disable that if they want for whatever reason. So people are responding to it, and YouTube, we can see because it basically shows you where people are coming in to watch it. They're testing it to wider and wider and wider audiences. So, and it's gotten a handful of subscribers have joined as a result of that video. So you may be one of those. So whether you're an old subscriber, a new subscriber, or just watching for the first time, maybe some people just like to see what's live because they promote these. I know on YouTube, you may just have gone, what's this guy talking about? Oh yeah, not for me. It's fine. Thank you for being here. Even if you jump the second that I finish this sentence or before, but thank you for being here. And yes, thank you to anyone who came in from that. We will have a lot more of those sorts of videos. Those will be our typical like Sunday, 6 p.m. Paris. That'll be our typical Sunday night video that we put out is something practical, logistical about moving to France, dealing with life in France, administrative, logistical hassles and hurdles and overcoming them. And then interesting comparisons. Like I'm doing the healthcare video for Sunday, which I think, I think Europeans will be interested for the US side of this. They already know that they have, French people in general understand their system is generally awesome. And if you were born and raised here, you probably are like full of complaints about it too. Well, compared to the US system, be grateful would be my unsolicited advice to you, because as I'll detail. But so I think French people and Europeans in general, and will be interested to know what the US costs are. I mean, Asians, all kinds of people will be interested to hear that costs how much in the US. Oh my God, and Americans are gonna just go, Americans are gonna be mad. And I'm sorry, what can I say? Join us. It's not, you pay for this with your taxes, but you get what you pay for. That's kind of the general premise with a lot of these services, these public services, in France, is that they're subsidized heavily by taxes, and, you actually get what you pay for though. So as much as people hear about the tax rates and go, oh my, that's horrible. Well, it's horrible in theory, but then how much are you paying out of pocket? for stuff. How much is your insurance in the US that you're paying for per month? Okay, well there's that amount of money that you're not putting in your that you're not keeping that you take home. Maybe you take home more money objectively, but you're spending more money too, So it's ultimately what's your net at the end of the day. So so that video about a residence card stuff, it's part one of hopefully two parts. Hopefully the next part is I got my card, I'm good to go. End of story. Hopefully that's the next video. There may be a video if there's continued hassles. I don't think there will be. Um, I've said this before, and if you're a longtime viewer, pardon the redundancy for people who are newer, but I have a talent. We came here. I have a talent passport visa as an artiste. So fancy. My mom got a big kick out of that, and so did I. Obviously, I think it's funny, but it's cool. I'm a professional filmmaker for a living. It's what I do. And Susie has the talent passport family visa, which is, because of mine. So the talent passport is one of the categories that automatically lets you bring your family. It's also one of the ones that does not have so it's a 1-year visa and it's renewable automatically. Doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. You have to do a lot, but it is automatically renewable for up to a 4-year residence card if you according to, if you meet certain criteria, which we did, fortunately. But it's a pathway to, it's a 1-year visa that becomes a 4-year residence card, and then that's renewable for like up to another 4 years. And so the rules are a little bit different, and this relates. There's some questions I'll get to when I get to the Q&A. There's some questions that this is related to, but to the point of Susie's residence card visa, she definitely, I mean, there's no question. I mean, I have my residence card. I have my tête de séjour, my carte de séjour. It's in my wallet upstairs, So it's not a question of her being qualified or eligible. I mean, she gets it automatically. That's one of the things. What I was starting to say, and I lost that train of thought, was that this is one of the categories. The talent passport category is one of the few that does not have to turn it to a residence card at the end of your first year. It does not have a language requirement. Now, we're working diligently to learn French because this is our chosen forever home. We won't be in this house forever, but we plan to be in France for the long haul. And they may change the rules at some point. There's a lot of political pressure to change the rules, and that relates to anti-immigrant sentiment and all kinds of stuff it's above my pay grade, right? I'm just very grateful and glad that we're able to be here. But talent passport doesn't have a language requirement because, I mean, I have this artistic category that's, like, as I understand it from the research that we pulled, that is the smallest subcategory of the talent passport category. More broadly, it's like academics and researchers and certain types of entrepreneurs, although entrepreneurs are really kind of another category, but there are certain types of entrepreneurs that work in certain sectors. It's basically people who, I mean, I'm lucky because France loves culture, right? They love art, they love culture. So people like filmmakers and writers and musicians that have some kind of portfolio, some kind of body of work and some history doing this, and have a proposal for why they want to do it in France, why they want to come to France and do the thing that they do and what they're going to contribute to France. And I have some projects that are set here, So they're pretty generous with that. It's a lot to get it, and it's my particular category is really hard to get, but I'm uniquely kind of qualified for my subcategory. But the general category is like academics and researchers and scientists, fall under the talent passport category. So they want people, and so their language is not the issue. It's like, it's for people who are fancier than me. It's like, oh, this is a leading scientist on whatever, cancer research. We want them to be able to come here and work with at this hospital or this clinic or in this research facility, work with our people. So the language is secondary. It's like, what skills what assets or skills are you bringing to France will come on. So no language requirement, and you get to bring your family. It's another way that they attract people like the academics and researchers who are generally older, generally more established, and generally have a family of some kind. So, um, so with residence card, she's qualified, no issues. I mean, it's not an issue. It's not a question of does she get it. It's simply a question of, it was considered a manufacturing error. You've probably seen that video, and I've talked about it enough. I don't want to belabor the point. I do want to close this door. So pardon me for half a second. Okay, well, I guess the door has swollen. The weather's changing and the door's swollen and the door jammed, but my voice tends to carry, and I don't want to be the one to wake the baby up. Although we're multiple rooms and 2 floors away, I don't want to wake the baby up earlier than she wants to get up, because you'll hear that. You'll hear her. She'll say hi with her screams of joy at being alive. So that video about the residence card stuff, a lot of comments. I'll deal with those when we get to comments. Of course, we did the podcast, which I said that one was especially a bit rambly. And without Susie here for me to bounce off of and take a break, we're live. So I assume I'm keeping my eye, I'm bouncing back and forth between windows to keep my eye on the chat. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Happy to answer them. And I'll do my best to answer in real time. But I'm bouncing back and forth between my outline and that window. So the podcast was more rambly than this is so far, but there's a method to it. There usually is with me, not always, but usually that's the theory. And I speak my mind even more. I consider that. I thought about calling it Chez Davis After Dark, but then I thought that sounded a little vaguely, Skinamax or something. I thought that sounded a little maybe off brand. But I considered calling it Chez Davis After Dark because I usually do them at night. This one happened to be recorded during the day. And then in terms of videos this week, there's this live that you're watching. So hi. So what's coming up next? Drum roll, please. That probably just really sounded great on my mic. We have our first interview. I teased this on the podcast. We have our first interview. I'm really, really can't wait to get this done and finished and have you see it. So our very first interview is with Brandy and Todd, who have a channel called Roaming Retirement. And I've been watching their channel since I discovered it a couple of months ago. And they're a real nice couple from the US. They moved from Texas. And their story is, I don't want to, the video gets into this in great. It's basically like a long form podcast interview. We thought about putting these originally. The plan was to put these on the podcast kind of format and do them but we're going to keep the podcast for, it seems like it's got value to exist on its own. This is a place for me to kind of say whatever the hell I want to say without concern of trying to turn that into a proper video. This is, I'm editing the heck out of it. The content is the content. It's really good, but I'm alternating the shots that you see, between me and them, different sizes. It'll look and feel more produced than like the podcast stuff. So our very first interview with them goes live noon on Friday, Paris time. And man, it was great. They're like me. That conversationally, we're of a similar. We're cut up from similar cloth. They could easily do their own podcast, which I mean in the most complimentary way you can take that. I mean that way because they're excellent conversationalists and they are full of curiosity and excitement at their new home in Nice. But they absolutely have. They thought long and hard. They've been planning to retire to Europe for years, as they discuss. And France wasn't actually even their first goal. So I'll save the details. I'll let them tell you. But Todd had studied French back in school, and we had people from their channel started coming to us via. They did a video So Susie and I did our videos about our experiences taking the A1 intensive at Alliance Francaise at the headquarters here in Paris. And those videos obviously came out like last month. And the biggest growth on our channel so far was Susie's first one, her Alliance Francaise, and then mine is like the number two video in terms of how many people have seen that video for the whole channel. But they did a video like last 2 weeks ago now, I think, called like Learning French After 50. And it's about their experience at Alliance Francaise with Brandy taking the A1 intensive in Nice. And Todd took, and he just told me, we just did the interview yesterday. I started editing. I'm about halfway through the edit. I think he took A2.1. I think he did A2.1. Um, but it's their experience and it's great. And it's like 10 minutes, it's like real succinct. It's like 10, maybe 12. Maybe that's a little longer. Maybe they tend to aim for 10-minute videos roughly. And their footage is great because they're in Nice and it's gorgeous. And so they're just walking around talking to us at different places. But I mean, it's gorgeous because it's Nice. And that video specifically, again, looking, under the hood, behind the curtain, etc. That video is the single biggest video that YouTube in its algorithmic wisdom said people who watch this would probably like our videos on this, and they have. You can't see, as detailed as that stuff is behind the scenes, you can't see how many people from that channel. You can see a lot of stuff actually, but it doesn't show you how many people subscribe. But we got a lot of people um, outside of our few of our own videos referring to those videos, to our other videos. They're the biggest external, source of people discovering our channel. So if you came from roaming retirement, again, special thanks to you. Interview goes up Friday at noon. Really great. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of these, and hopefully Susie will join. Just time wise, it worked out that I needed to do it by myself. I have a big background in interviewing. I did radio, like starting back in college. Before everybody had a podcast, I've had 3 different podcasts. So I've done, I don't know, 300 something podcast episodes as the host and producer and, doing the interviewing. And I've been a guest on many dozens of podcasts and radio shows. And I did radio in China on English language network for a while when I lived there. So I have a background in this. So it's natural for me to do the interview stuff, but I hope Susie gets to join and get more of her voice in. Some of her questions are the questions that I asked Brandy and Todd, although she wasn't actually on she pops in with Jenny to say hi for a second, which was fun at the beginning. But I'm looking forward to doing more of these interviews. I hope, frankly, candidly, if you're watching this, you're probably already a subscriber or you like what we're doing and will stay with the channel and come back and see stuff. There are a lot of these channels. Brandy and Todd and I talk about this. There are a lot of these other France expat focused or come visit France, we're French, we come visit France, and here's why. There are a lot of these channels that we really, really like. And we, of course, the best ones we all like, and they all overlap, but I'm hoping to continue to interview people from these other channels, and including like people who are like French language instructors. I'd love to interview Geraldine with Comment Française, Lucille from Lucille HR is her handle. But I'd love to interview Lucille, her channel. There's a video from her channel that is, up until Brandy and Todd popped up, she was the biggest. Her channel specifically was the biggest refer into our channel. And she's a French girl who lives here, but she'd been an expat in the US a long time. Her boyfriend, Bobby, as I remember his name, is American, and they lived in the States, and she's traveled extensively. So she's a French person who's been an expat a lot. So it's like a reversal of the experience. And so I'd love to talk to Lucille. Love to talk to the Baguette Bound folks. Don't know them yet. I imagine we'll all get acquainted at some point. But I want to do more of these interviews, and so I'm hoping that you enjoy the Brandy and Todd interview, the roaming retirement interview. And yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to do one of these every week if I could line up the people. But otherwise, Friday, that'll go in the Friday slot. So I consider it Fun Friday. So it's going to be something like that, or it's like some fun cultural experience or something travel related. Because Susie and I have all this footage from our travels from like our honeymoon reunion, kind of our extended European tour we had when we finally reconnected after COVID in Paris, got married, all this stuff. So the Copenhagen one's been done. I love that video. It's not. I wish more people discovered it because it's so fun. I mean, Copenhagen was gorgeous, and we had a blast. I think it's a fun video. And people who watched it seem to like it. Just not a ton of people watch it. But we have a lot of videos like that to do. So travel related, other cultural stuff we're doing either around in Paris or here at the house. Funny things. Funny stuff, random stuff. We'll do some random entertainment type stuff, and then interviews. Because that interview was a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, a lot of laughing. A lot of information, and it's pretty focused, and I'm editing it to where it's really focused, but a lot of fun too. Really nice people. So thank you to Brandy and Todd. If you happen to see this, or if you're fans of their channel and you see this, tell them I said thanks again. I'll tell them multiple times between now and then too. So, so what's coming up next? As I said, sorry, losing my voice. And the prayers of a grateful nation are answered. Brendan can't talk. You heard us. So roaming retirements Friday, the healthcare, U.S. versus France healthcare costs with real receipt stories, side-by-side prices. That comes out Sunday at 6. So what's coming up after that? Well, of course, there's another podcast the following week. There's another podcast that drops Tuesday night. Wednesday, we'll do a live, similar to this, time zone-wise. We're almost to the Q&A, by the way. If you're curious where we are, we're almost to the Q&A part. So yeah, next week, healthcare video, podcast Tuesday night, live Wednesday afternoon, and then Friday, I have for a fun Friday video, I have something that I shot it a few weeks back. We did this, like the Chinese hot pot. We brought the machine over here because China electricity in France, you have to use an adapter for the plug, but the electricity is the same. So we brought a nice hot pot machine, like a double-sided, cooker for making hot pot. And I freaking love hot pot. In Beijing, man, we throw down on some hot. We knock out a real hot pot at like Heidi Lao or one of these nice restaurants. We do a legit hot pot once a week, probably twice a week, if we're in Beijing. So we did one in the backyard with our new kind of patio furniture setup, and it was a lot of fun. It's kind of fun, and there's like time lapses and making some stuff, and it's generally fun. And there's a little baby chaos because the baby absolutely loses her shit at some point and just full on freak out. It's just kind of entertaining. He starts running around, and screaming too. So maybe turn the volume down, but enjoy the crazy. Like she sort of looks like a little Benny Hill. She's like running around. It's random as hell. It's pretty funny. I think you might get a laugh out of it. The point of that one is that it's going to be funny and you'll laugh, and you learn a bit about hot pot as well. But we do our East-West version of it. We use all these French meats. I'll talk about that in the video. That's why I'm making the video. So that's next Friday. And then Sunday, a week from Sunday, I got something that I'm real excited about. Real excited. So it's not about, how to get life insurance. It's not about insurance or residence cards, both of which are really important. It's not about how to get your kid into daycare, which is really important. We got something special coming up, and I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it involves an announcement for a series of special lives that I'm going to do, which will appeal to some of you very much, some of you not at all. But so those of you that not at all, as you hear this, just bear with me for a second, because the people that will think this is cool. So I'm a big NFL fan. As I said on the podcast, most people haven't started seeing the podcast. Right out of frame, I have, make sure I'm on camera. I'm a big Niners fan. So people who hate the Niners are tuning out now too. This is my George Kittle jersey. The signatures are not Kittle. This is Emmanuel Mosley, who used to play for the team. Loved E-Man. He was great. And then this is Nick Bosa, who is He's Nick freaking Bosa. If you know football, you know Nick Bosa is a total badass. So as an edge rusher, he's insane. He's one of the best, arguably the best. So I'm a huge Niners fan. I'm a big NFL fan. So NFL is coming to Europe. Have you heard? NFL is going to be in Europe. Oh, okay. Well, the first NFL international game, they've expanded to 7 of these international games. And the first one is in Brazil. So, of course, that's on like American Continental Time. That's like 2:30 a.m. Paris time. I ain't watching. I'll watch that on replay if I hear it's a good game. I'll watch the 15-minute YouTube summary if it's not a great game. Niners are not playing any of these games. I'm just kind of showing you my bona fides right here as an NFL fan. And I got hats and rally flags and all this stuff around here. It's just not on camera. But for the NFL Lives, I'll talk about this on the Sunday video. I'm going to talk about more than this. The part that's more than this is what's really cool. But I will be detailing more of what I'm going to be doing during the NFL International Series. The rest of it's all in Europe. So the first game is in Brazil. The other 6 games are all in Europe. And they're tailored for Europeans. Imagine that. So they air in the US. They start airing at like 9:30 a.m. East Coast time. They are 2:30 p.m. Paris time is the start time of these games. So there are 3 in London. The first one's in Dublin. It's the Vikings Steelers. Don't know who I'm taking yet. I don't bet. I don't have the money to bet. I don't have the stomach to bet. I get too much stress in my life as it is. I don't have to worry about losing money on top of that or picking right. But I'll guess. I'll make predictions. I just won't risk any money to do it. Because if I'm right, cool. If I'm wrong, okay, I learned something or things went another way. I'm not out there. I'm not there with pads on. I can't make a difference either way. So I'm just, I'm a huge NFL fan, but I'm not just absolutely fanatic, lives, breathes it. So I'm like a intermediate plus level fan, knowledgeable enough to be useful if you don't know that much, or you're kind of a, newbie to it, or not a real active viewer. I can hang with the average person talking about NFL who's really into the NFL. But I have friends who are managing a fantasy league for 15 years and, they know every single player and their stats in college and all this crazy stuff. I'm not that guy. But what we're going to do that is part of the Sunday, September 7th video is that I'm going to be detailing more about doing live watch-alongs for the NFL Europe games. So if you are a fan who can't go to the game, and maybe you're going to watch alone, and you want somebody to, you want somebody to chat with. I'm going to watch the game. No, I can't obviously show you the game or hear the game. So it's going to be pointing at me, kind of like this, where I'm got like my TV right there, and I'm listening to earbuds. So I also don't get the soundtrack copyright strike from the NFL. But I'm going to do an overlay. I'll get the ability to be able to put graphics on the screen here, so I can update the score and everything. So like if people randomly drop in, they know what we're doing and where we are. I'll have a banner that says what we're doing, and I'll have a banner that shows the score and whatnot. I'm not going to update it play by play like they do for the broadcast. That requires a special person just to do that one job. Is like somebody only doing that job, and there are people feeding them the information to input it. But excuse me, I'm going to do live watch-alongs because I want to. I think it'd be fun. I might get one person watching, cool. I'm going to watch the games anyway. But if somebody wants to watch it with me, maybe you're watching by yourself and you'd like to kind of have somebody to chat with a little bit. Maybe you're new to football and you want to chit chat with somebody through the chat who, maybe knows a little bit more, or maybe whatever, maybe you're a European fan who doesn't know American football super well. Although I've learned Europeans, and this is part of what I'll talk about in the big Sunday video, we discovered, because I've been to 2 games. Susie and I went to a game, Jaguars Panthers at Wembley, which was totally awesome. And then I took my stepfather when my mom and he were here. I took him last year, I took them to London for like a weekend, and Susie stayed here with the baby. And I took Ray to see The Jets blow to see Aaron Rodgers choke and blow it at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but it was still amazing. It was great time. So what I was going to say to American football fans, to Americans who are football fans, European fans of American football, it is next level. I'm not saying that they out passion you or anything like that, but I will tell you, it's amazing. I'll go into great detail on this on the video, and I've got tons of video from all this. You might be getting a hint where this is going. I got tons of video about all this stuff. And so I'll be showing people, I'll be showing you what it's like to go inside an NFL international game from an American from an American perspective is like it's part of the point, but that's not the main point. It's here's what it's like. And I'll also cover like all the logistical stuff. Hey, are you coming to one of these games? Here's what you do. Here's how you deal with Wembley. Here's how you deal with Tottenham Hotspur. And both of them require some instruction to make it a smooth experience. Trust me, trust me. Just watch the video. And meanwhile, though, I'll also talk about doing these live. So I was going to say that, European fans tend to be super crazy. If they're into the NFL, they're super knowledgeable and they tend to, they have their team. I saw every team jersey. Every team was well represented in both the stadiums at the games I saw. Hats, jerseys, some people fully rigged out, like whatever teams have like a certain kind of, jewelry or certain kind of whatever hats, like funny glasses, rally flags, things like that. And there were a lot of people who traveled for the games from outside Europe, but but the vibe was more like a concert where everybody's smoking dope and happy. Like it wasn't, there was playful, blah, 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 two people with wearing rival team jerseys with, blah, blah, oh yeah, but you got us last time. But it was all friendly. It was all really in good humor and fun. And just everybody was so happy to be there and see this live. It's the best. Those are the best two football experiences I've had in my life. And I've been lucky enough to see a bunch of Niners games from my business partners, season tickets on like the 40 or 45 yard line at Levi's Stadium where the Niners absolutely dominated. I've also seen them totally suck it and get killed. I saw them demolished by the Chiefs at Levi's several years back. But, I've been lucky to see a lot of these games from really premium seats and where I could actually, if for 80% of the field of play, I could see with my own eyeballs looking at the field what the heck's going on. I didn't have to look at the monitor, so very fortunate for that. For these games, we were way up in the nosebleeds. Didn't matter. Awesome seats, huge monitors, just so, 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 so fun. And so I'll do these watch alongs. So there may be European fans who can't go to the games, in the UK and Ireland, the 3 in England, and then there's a game in Germany, and I'm blanking on where the other game is. So Brazil, there's 7 total. I'm blanking right now where the other game is. It's on my desktop. Let me look real quick and tell you. Let me just look because I have it right here. Yeah, so Sao Paulo, Dublin, Tottenham Hotspur, Wembley, Berlin, and then Madrid. That's right. My father-in-law's team is the Commanders, and they play the Dolphins. And we've got former Niner, D.O. Samuel, plays for the Commanders, and I loved him at the Niners, but I always thought he kind of had a bit of a he's a bit full of himself, and I guess if I was worth that much money, I might be, and that talented, I might be full of myself to that degree too. But nonetheless, Debo plays for the Commanders, plus they're my father-in-law's team or my stepfather's team. So yeah, I'll root for the Commanders, although I like the Dolphins. I wish the Dolphins could get it together. But anyway, I'll be rambling on about things like that live while we watch the games together, if you're into that sort of thing. So if you want a football buddy and you're watching alone, feel free. Or if you just want to talk trash, if you see I'm taking a certain opinion, because I'm going to make a pick of who I like and why I like them and whatever. And if you just want to, if I turn out to be totally wrong, or you disagree, and you're welcome to do football trash talk, just fill the chat up. It's fine with me, and especially if we get a few people watching, that can be fun. If it gets kind of crappy, I may moderate a little bit, but for the most part, that if it's in goods, if it's in good, good humor, good, if there's a good fun intention behind it, that kind of stuff can be great. So yeah, join me for a little football jibber jabber while we watch the live together. Um, so let me get into some questions as I as I try to. Can you call it hydration if it's Coke Zero? It's wetting my throat to keep speaking. So let's get into some questions here, shall we? All right, let me pop my cheaters on here so I can see what we're looking at here. Let me pop over into the questions. So I have a few of these that I've had to do some research on because several people asked some damn good questions that I wanted to give a more thorough answer. Some people answered some questions that require a little bit of research, so happy to do that. And actually, I think that's where we're starting. I'm looking back to what is 7 days ago. So we had several people. I think I might have addressed. Yes. So I'm going to address a few questions from Vane Fromage. So hi, Daniel. How you doing, man? That Vane Fromage is known as AKA Daniel. And he has several questions, and he had several good comments and just has several questions. So specifically, his questions related to things like travel insurance, the housing requirement, and how to move stuff to France, and then specifics about certain things that he had. So I have some answers for you, Daniel. So I think you typically watch these. So here you go, man. And we can continue the chat in the thread if you wish. So specifically, Daniel's questions, let me just kind of recap his question and I'll give you some answers here. So where we're pulling these from some of these are from the podcast, episode 1, the first podcast. So first he asked a question about, I think I might have mentioned it before, but one topic worthy of extended discussion for those of us considering the long-term visa is how to nail down a residence address to meet the 3-month or so residency requirement for the visa. And he thinks it's problematic to get like a 3-month Airbnb lease, for instance. And, because again, you might show up and you've never been there and all of a sudden you find out, oh, it looks great in the photos and it sucks when you get here in person. So, he's saying the French address requirement would mandate a scouting trip to secure something for 3 months. He mentions that having a liberal cancellation policy might be a key factor in choosing a thing. And then, so let's take these kind of one at a time because that comes up in a few other, that's referred back to a few different times. So in terms of the housing requirement, so there are many people who report that consulates ask for 3-month proof of housing. We got through with less. We just had a 2-month Airbnb when we moved here proper with Susie, 8 months pregnant. Like we literally flew on the last doctor approved safe day for her to fly, and we're nervous the whole way and everything turned out fine, thankfully. But we may also be, because I kind of went on about it earlier to set up this answer, we have this special case with our visas. Yes, our talent passport is a type of a VLSTS long stay visa, but there's a lot more latitude with this visa. And we also had like supporting cover documents that we took with us when we applied for our visas, which was at there's VFS Global and there's TLS, are the two different main visa service centers that operate globally. And when we went to I'm blanking, I think it was TLS in Beijing was where we actually got our long stay visas. When we were here before, she had a tourist visa. I was on as an American with 90 days in the Schengen region. We reunited the previous year on tourist visas. We moved here on our VLSTS talent passport visas. So in our particular case, we also had a cover letter and we had a letter from one of my French partners explaining who I am and this big movie project that's internal development, but explaining what this project is, and that it requires me to be here for like a year and a half when it starts, and I need to be here to help it to start, and et cetera, et cetera. And then we plan to stay here long term after that. And that was all true before we had the babies. So we had a lot of documentation with our package that the consulate. So basically, the processing center takes all this stuff in, and then they send it to the French consulate, who approves or does not approve your visa. So we had all these cover letters that explained us in detail, and we had support from. We were lucky. We had a lot of support. The organization that oversees, it's a body called the CNC that oversees Film France, and Film France is an organization that oversees filming, film incentives, logistics, attracting people to film here. The CNC was working with the French embassy to fast track our visas. So we are a very special case, and again, I don't take any of this for granted. So our mileage is very different. We had 2-month Airbnb with the intention of we got a place that was convenient to the hospital and convenient to the doctor, convenient to the maternity and convenient to the OBGYN. And then we found a place where we went for 15 months, and we just outgrew it. And so now we're here in this place. We have a 3-year lease. So to your question, according to the research, basically, and asking my friend ChatGPT, which you've probably done as well, but 3 months does seem safe. In general, 3 months seems safe. And to Daniel and a few other people had similar related questions to the question about, well, how do you do that? Do you need to take a scouting trip to find a place for 3 months? Well, certainly possible, depending on what your situation is. I would also suggest that what you could do, what might be a better plan, pardon me, I need to refresh the beverage off camera. Well, semi off camera. Does that sound good on the mic? You hear that? It's pretty delicious. I love this stuff. Anyway, I hate Diet Coke, but I love Coke Zero. And it tastes better in Europe. I figure. Don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm in Europe. And so I feel happier drinking it. Nonetheless, one thing I suggest, practical advice amongst all the chit chat. Practical advice is, if this works for your situation and your personal comfort level, like if your nervous system would tolerate this, okay, one thing you could do is get yourself a hotel. Plan to get yourself a hotel and get one of those rates where it's like a nice discounted. If you book it for like a little bit of a longer stay, maybe even do a month. Or maybe you get a hotel to the 3-month issue. Maybe you do a 3-month booking, but make sure there's a cancellation policy. Okay. And get that and have that hotel and get here, get your feet on the ground, and then get on Airbnb and Vrbo equivalent. And, there are other sites that people use here besides, I don't think Vrbo. Is Vrbo here? I guess they are. But, there are a lot of these different sites that we've used. We've looked at. There's Morning Croissant. There's, Morning Croissant for my American friends, my fellow American friends who haven't learned French. So Morning Croissant, Paris Attitude, name's a little off-putting, but nonetheless, they have good stuff on their site for rentals, long and short term. And they also sell houses. So there are a lot of these. They're endless list. I would stay away until you're looking to do a long-term place where you're ready to sign a year-plus lease. I would stay away from C'est Loger or pap.fr, pap.fr. Those are great. Well, pap.fr is great. C'est Loger and Le Balcon. Sorry, French speakers. I'm doing my best to make this understandable for non-French speakers. Plus, my French sucks, though I study every day and practice every day. So I'm trying to bridge the gap. Trying to do a little cultural bridging here. But those sites are more oriented toward long-term rentals. So short-term rentals, yeah, you have Airbnb. You tend to find stuff that's kind of Airbnb quality. I mean, you can find nice stuff on Airbnb, but it tends to be really expensive. You may find the same place on some other listing site. Um, there are some of these vendors who also list their stuff. Like there's a vendor called Guest Ready that they also list their stuff on Airbnb, but you can go right through guestready.com. The place we landed in the 16th when we first got here for the first 2 months, that was a guest ready place, but we got it through Airbnb. Um, and they were pretty responsive. There were a few issues. This is a great place. We had a few issues here and there, and they were pretty responsive. There's some things to complain about, but life's too short and it's old news and not relevant to your question. So, one thing you could do is book a hotel out for 3 months. Make sure it has a liberal cancellation policy. They mostly want to make sure that you're not going to be living under a bridge or, you know, in a tent by the Seine River. They want to make sure that you got some place to lay your head and that it's sorted out. So you could get a hotel with a liberal cancellation policy, get your butt here, then go start checking out some places that you see on Airbnb or the other sites. I mentioned a few, and I can give you a comprehensive list. Sorry, a little dust wad right by the camera there. So you can do that. Second thing is, and I would suggest this, is if you have a friend in Paris, no, if all of you took me up on this offer, I'd have to start thinking about charging or something. But if one or two of you want to look at a place and you say, "Hey, can my local friend go check it out for me?" I'm happy to do that within reason. So if you want to try to find like a 3 month plus Airbnb, I can do some checking out before I actually walk out the door. I can get online, I can find the neighborhood, I can ask around to people. I can look at it and look at the map and go, "Oh no, that's like a crackhead park." Like there's some great places in the 20th arrondissement, right? The 20th district. There's some lovely places, and I'm not trying to throw shade casually, and you may live in the 20th and be watching this. So no offense, but if you are, if that's you, you know what I'm talking about. The 20th is also home to some of the sketchiest parts of Paris. Although there's some gorgeous stuff that's like just it's right there, and it's like a jewel in the middle of the jungle kind of thing. So there are certain places that have a bad reputation, or maybe the place itself is great, but it borders something scary. So it's like, yeah, that place is great, but always make sure that you approach from the west. Do not approach from this other direction. When you go home, always take this metro or whatever. Do not take that metro because you'll get out over here where you don't want to be. So there are certain areas that just have a generally bad reputation. There's certain areas that seem great on paper, but my God, they're not connected. They're just enough off of any kind of transit line to be a real pain in the ass to deal with. So depending on what you're doing, if you're going to come here and plant your feet and just live your life, and you don't really need to go into the big city, whether it's Paris or another city, if you don't need to go into city all the time, then fine. But if you're probably not gonna have a car right away. We don't have a car still. We don't have driver's licenses here. That's its own video that's coming up once we get into that process, which relates to a question someone else asked that I'll get to in a moment. But I would suggest, again, in this case for Daniel, and if anybody else wants to try to butter me up for this, feel free. Again, you can buy me a coffee, and ask nicely, and maybe I'll be happy to go do a little scouting trip for you and kill a couple hours. But the point is, you could look at a place and say, "Look, it looks great on paper. I have a friend who lives in Paris. If it's Paris related, if you want me to look at a place outside of Paris, then we got to talk. You got to get the train ticket and whatever." But I'm happy to do that, honestly, if I can. But I can go look. I can shoot video. I can send you a video, tell you what I think, check the place out, kick the tires. And yeah, I can do that for you, Daniel. And if anybody else starts to ask me, I'll evaluate on a case by case basis. It's a standing offer that I'll consider it to help you out. So, hey, what can I do? I'm a giver. That's what we're trying to do here. Is give some useful help and information. So, Daniel, there's your answer to that: is either book a 3 month hotel that's cancelable, get here, find a place yourself, or find something you think looks great. See if I can go check it out for you. That's my recommendation. Okay, bounce to the next question. So travel insurance, this is covered. We covered this a little bit on a few of these other lives. So travel insurance typically only covers 90 days. So the visa is you need a 1 year relocation health policy. Now, after you arrive here, you can transition into the French healthcare system, the PUMA, which is the PUMA Protection Universal Malady Assurance, I think is what that acronym stands for. Um, and again, French speakers, I'm pronouncing things so that non-French speakers can sort of understand what I'm saying, hopefully. So no offense. I know how to say that a little better than I just said it. I promise. Um, in theory. So the carte vitale, which sounds like I'm Italian, sound like a Italian who's just been roofied or something. Carte vitale. Sorry, I don't do accents, obviously. So the Puma is protection universal, universal health insurance is sort of what that stands for. And you're eligible once you live here 3 months. So 3 months and a day later, get your damn form in, apply. We'll have a big video about what happens if you don't, because we're in the middle of ratcheting up our appeals to get reimbursed for the reimbursable part of the labor and delivery and hospital stay and the follow-up care and all this. It's supposed to be reimbursed, and we kept the magic receipts to fill the swamp. And it may not be happening. And man, that's we could use that money. We could use that bread. And France just doesn't want to give it to us. They don't want to give it to us. So anyway, a lot of lessons learned. That's its own video. That's probably a video series when we get to it. But we're in the middle of these appeals, and we don't want to. I don't want to jinx anything and talk about it too much. But the point is, there are other insurance options, and I specifically said this. There's someone else who commented about insurance later, and when I'm scrolling back through the comments, I've got my notes here answering some specific things, a lot of which Daniel asked. I'll scroll through in a minute and get into other comments. But someone else had asked, and I threw a link in. There's a website. We don't have any endorsements or sponsorships. We're sponsored by us right now, right? So. But I can tell you that we've used some things. There is basically a Schengen insurance. If you Google Schengen visa insurance, there are a lot of sites that'll come up. But when I used to search it originally, it was always the number one site. So I think they pay for the rankings or it's the most popular. But there is basically, Schengen, Schengen travelers insurance, and you can get these policies that you don't pay for the full year. You just pay per month. You can cancel anytime. And I believe that the provider is called Europe Care, spelled, they have to make the spelling atypical. It's like Europe without the second E. Europe Care, Europe Assist. I'm forgetting right now. Sorry, that's not in front of me. I'm so well prepared otherwise, and I don't have that in front of me. But it covers everything you need to cover. It is what you need to be here. You can get that policy, and I believe you can get that before you travel. But what we did is that we got, because Susie was pregnant, we didn't play around. We got Cigna insurance that covered the two of us, me plus a very pregnant her. And we had everything, man. Do you want this option? Yes. Check all the damn boxes. And man, it was like $600 a month for the two of us. And neither of us, I puff a vape very once in a while. I'm a non-smoker, technically, very moderate now, like very light drinker, moderate drinker in the before times, before I went back on this crazy diet lifestyle plan. I look thinner though, right? I look better. So I'm not mad at it. But that insurance is expensive as hell. But that was a 1-year policy and crazy expensive, but it covered freaking everything. It included like medical repatriation. If I'd gone mountain climbing and got stuck on a mountain, they'd bring a helicopter and take me to the nearest hospital or to another country. It covered every freaking contingency, and it was about $600 a month and change, a little more than 600. And it was a 1-year policy, but it was cancelable with no fee, with a month's notice. So we paid out the nose for like 4 months for that because I had to get but meanwhile, when I got here and I found that other stuff, I got that supplement until we got into the carpet tile system. So my recommendation is see if you can get one of these comprehensive soup to nuts, cover every eventuality kind of policies. It ain't going to be cheap, but make sure that it's cancelable. Make sure you know the terms. You got to dig under the hood on your own for that. But I mean, Cigna, Aetna, all these major companies have these things, and they definitely satisfy the visa requirements. No worries. That's what we had. Not a problem at all. But when you get here, until you're in the system, as I just said, you can get really cheaper stuff. So the policy that through like Europe Care, Europe Assist, whatever it is that I found through the Shinkin Visa travel insurance Google search website. That policy, it tells you like get Shinkin insurance for only as low as like $5 a month or something. Well, it ain't $5 a month. But covering me plus Jenny, me, Susie, and Jenny, right? So baby, all this. I think that ended up being about 185 euros per month, so about $200 a month. So again, you can do the math. A third the cost of the Cigna policy, and it had less bells and whistles. They were going to put us on a helicopter and fly us to Switzerland if we needed specialist surgery or something. But totally covered the bill. Totally covered every eventuality. We never had to use it, not fortunately. But that also, it checks all the boxes for visa requirements. And again, you pay for it month to month. So you have an ongoing policy, but you can cancel before the billing, and then there you go. You have it through the end of what you paid for, and then it's gone. So there are a lot of more economical ways to deal with this. So Daniel also asked the question about moving stuff to France. And from what you told me that you want to bring, which is a recording studio full of equipment, minus equipment that you might bring it as furniture, but the power is going to be different. And it's up to you if you want to try to use like some voltage converter, some kind of a transform, like a serious transformer. I'm not talking about like, well, he knows this, but for people who don't, I'm talking about, Daniel has a recording studio and tons of equipment and tons of vintage guitars and stuff. And he already knows that like a lot of his stuff he's going to have to get rid of. But a lot of the electronic stuff, unless it's European by design, and maybe he's using a transformer, maybe it's dual currency, some of the fancy high-end studio equipment. This is really niche. Sorry, but I'm also a music and recording guy. Some of the high-end stuff is dual voltage because they made it in Europe, but they want to sell it worldwide. And so you can flip a switch in the back and magically you can plug it into your outlet in America, or you can come back here or go to China and plug it in there and it works with the right adapter on the end. But so it's up to you to know what you want to bring or not. You might have some fancy gear that you can't use here because you don't want to risk it on a transformer, but you don't want to leave it behind. And it's a nice object d'art, right? It's a nice objet d'art. It's a nice piece of art. It's a nice coffee table. Or it's something on your coffee table. But to move the amount of stuff that you talked about, you probably need a 40-foot container. You're probably going to fill up an entire damn shipping container. And the approximate costs that I'm finding for that are between $5,000 to $8,000 US. Now, so it's duty free. Here's how the rules work. Again, I'm not a lawyer, not a tax advisor, and then I have to also now give the caveat: I'm not a customs official. I think that's obvious. I think all that's obvious, but to say disclaimer. So the best brains at OpenAI tell me that it's duty free. I do know that you have to do this before you've lived here 12 months, before your residence visa has been 12 months. It's duty free if the items have been owned and or used more than 6 months. Okay. So you can't get like brand new stuff and bring it here duty free. That's the tricky part. But it has to be shipped. Now it may take 3 months, 4 months to get here, depending on your shipping, but it has to leave your port. It has to be shipped within 12 months to the day of when you set your feet here on a residence visa. That's the rule. Otherwise, you pay a duty on it. So it's like you get to buy it all over again at a discount. But yeah, so stuff that you had longer than 6 months, which rare guitars and such apply to this. But you have to ship it within a year. And I told Daniel this directly on the thread, but I'm saying this for people who are generally curious. So you need a you want to get a freight forwarder to handle all the custom stuff, and they'll go through and do the manifest, every single item, every like guitar pick or guitar cable or pack of strings. I mean, all that stuff's going to get inventoried. It's kind of bananas. And they had Daniel knows it. They have guitar picks and guitar strings and cables here. So, just bring the must bring stuff and then get the other stuff here, because it's just more hassle on your end to make this move, to make this work. But freight forwarder will work on this. Now, interesting. I'm glad I asked, besides my own research in Google, I'm glad I asked GPT this question because it flagged something I had not thought about, which is, about your actual instruments. Most guitars are going to be fine, but you have to watch for the acronym CITES, like the CITES restrictions on rare woods. There are restrictions on rosewood, ivory, tortoiseshell, and some other things. So you may need certificates. Now you can get things like that cleared, but maybe you probably have, Daniel mentioned he's got like 20 rare guitars. Well, I bet a few of them have ivory inlays on the fretboard or on the guitar headstock or the binding, or they have rosewood necks. There may be some tortoiseshell inlays on some of your stuff. That's an issue to look into. So, welcome to France. And he already said, yeah, heavy stuff like pianos, best to sell that and rebuy. And Daniel already said that he knows he's going to have to sell his piano. So let me get into some other questions. This one's going a bit long today. Hope you're enjoying this if you're watching. Thanks for hanging. I am going to say that I'm going to try to wrap this in about the next 15 minutes. Just if anybody's losing their will to live as I ramble on, I promise you that there will be an end to this. But I want to hit a few more questions and comments. People's left some really nice comments. I don't want to gloss over that. So several people, a lot of comments about my Duolingo video that was like the anchor video the previous week, but it still gets people commenting. So thank you for all that. Several people, I can't remember. I think I addressed some of these comments already, but there were several comments related to the podcast and just how nice it is to live in this environment. Family of Geniuses, hello to you. Family of Geniuses has left several really nice comments in general, and essentially made the comment, I'm very, very tired of the political and cultural extremes that affect every part of my American life. I'd love to be reassured it's better there. Yes, it is. I think I said this last week. It's worth saying again because it's still true. So, excuse me, I'm scrolling up. Willie 2012 said to Susie, thank you very much for your candid, in-depth explanation about her Alliance Française video. As I'm about to register for the intensive class at AF Paris, I find it very helpful. Merci bien. Merci à vous, Willie. Thank you. On behalf of Susie, thank you. And on behalf of me, thank you. We're glad it's useful. That's what we're aiming to do. There were a lot of comments. I did the community post Saturday about Jenny getting sick and us going to the hospital and that whole adventure. So many nice comments, a lot of likes on that post, but specifically I want to say hi. Everything okay? Okay. I heard Susie yell out something, but I think it was maybe Jenny smacked her accidentally or something. I was like making sure everything's okay up there. So Patricia, whose handle is Aco Snoops, basically so many people said, oh my gosh, hope Jenny's okay, or glad she's okay, because I was giving the update that she was doing better and now she's totally fine. So Patricia, Aco Snoops, said, do you know that you can call SOS Medicine for house calls in France? Obviously she needed labs that would have worked this time, but they're great for basic house calls. Her husband's French, so they spent a lot of time in France. and they're not in the system though because they live in the States. So we've used them in France. And yes, thank you for recommending that, Patricia. I appreciate that. And I explained to her that, and she understands because we had to go to the emergency room in this case, um, and needed lab work and stuff to make sure that it was only gastro and there was nothing else happening that was a problem. Um, so lots of people though were very complimentary. My friend Shams, shout out to Shams. Lots of great comments. Handle name SH Freund. If I'm probably mangling how you intentionally pronounce, but Shams has also, we got a whole thread going here on that post and others. But thank you very much. Saying sorry, offered to bring his Pedialyte. Thank you so much, and I addressed him in here. We do have Pedialyte available here. There is a Diaril is a powder that you mix with water, and that's the electrolyte fluid. That's like the go-to for babies and adults. That's like the thing. Every pharmacy's got it. And I have seen Pedialyte a few places, but she's fine now. And thankfully for that. But he offered to bring me some Pedialyte from I think he's in Canada. He's in Toronto. As I recall. I don't see it here, but I remember from other conversation he's in Toronto or near Toronto. So he offered to bring his Pedialyte, and then later he's offered to bring bring a variety of tea cakes and bricks with him when he comes. He's going to come visit France, and he's staying close by. You're not a stalker, are you, Shams? I have to ask. I don't need to get a restraining order, right? Just kidding, mostly kidding. I have a daughter. Got to protect the daughter. Looking forward to seeing you when you get here. We'll definitely meet up and have a coffee somewhere. And I graciously accept if you bring us gifts of fine teas. You're definitely moving closer to the actual real life friend list versus the parasocial relationship that we have now. So thank you for that offer. That's really kind. I'm a fine tea fanatic, like Chinese tea. I'm talking about tea is boring to anybody unless you're a tea fanatic, but I could talk about tea for a minute. Not like my friend Jesse Appel, who's become famous. Jesse's Tea Shop. Jesse's an old friend of mine from Beijing. Now he's got this tea channel and tea business that's blowing up. But he's like a American Chinese language stand-up comedian. He's been on my old podcast, and I've done shows at his. I've performed at his venues. He used to have a comedy venue in Beijing, and I used to do open mics at stand up. And anyway, he's a tea authority. So lots of comments about the residence card video, and quite a few people liked it. Patricia Iko Snoops again had mentioned, because she mentions about not having the residence card is causing a lot of problems. It prevents Susie has lost several job opportunities. There have been several things that, because her situation is, they don't want to deal with it. Now, legally, they can hire you with a prolongation, which again, we have to get another prolongation for her because they don't give it to you automatically. She has the approval letter that she's approved, and she will be getting her thing, but it's not the official prolongation letter form with a QR code. It's not that letter that you need for like customs to go in and out of the country for immigration, excuse me. But among the things is you can't get a driver's license. China has a reciprocal agreement with France. Chinese can transfer their valid Chinese license to a French one within a year of within a year, I think is the rule. So anywho, Susie's Chinese driver's license is expired, and she needs to go to China to renew it. And we also have some Chinese side paperwork to do with the baby in China. Just gets in the weeds a bit, but if you're Chinese or know China, their household registry system is called the Hukou, and it's like a family book. France has a family book system. Us Americans, we don't have a family book like this, but the Chinese Hukou is like your place of birth. It's your family's official domicile, basically your official residence. And every family has this Hukou. It's a family book, and it tracks everything. And eventually the parents, once you become parents, eventually, I'm not sure exactly what the rules are, because I think you basically keep this collection of these books that go back as far as they've been doing this. But so the family Huko, it starts with Susie's parents, and then there's Susie being born, and then it's kind of like her vaccine record equivalent is in there, and all these different things when if they had moves and whatnot, that's all documented and stamped and whatnot. And then whenever there's like a birth or a death, that gets stamped, you put into the Huko and stamped, and it's like part of the official record. Yeah, you have a copy, kind of like you have a passport. You have a copy, and then they keep a copy, with big China, right? So within their system, and within it's some filing cabinet, plus I'm sure there's digital copies. It's all in the digital system now, the copies. But you have a physical book, and it's real, man. You need it for everything. You need it like you need your passport for any kind of travel. You need that in China for all kinds of stuff. It's an essential document to have. Anyway, to get Jenny, as she's American citizen, China doesn't do dual nationality. She has the Chinese travel doc that's like a visa, but she's only an American citizen and born in France. So she's in this really kind of, her status is solid, but it's unusual. It's not uncertain, but it's unusual. And anyway, the bottom line is that at some point we have to go back to China for maybe a month and take care of a whole bunch of stuff, including getting Geneva, because you have to like present her in person to the nice police officer or official who's like, okay. And, you have to submit this to get her added to the Huko, to the family book, so that, not to be morbid, one day Jenny will receive any benefits of the social, like, basically all the equivalent of Social Security that Susie's paid into all these years, stuff that flows from her parents to Susie flows from Susie to Jenny. And she has to be added to the Huko in person. Apparently, there ain't no way to do that remotely, because we looked into it. And so the point that Echo Snoops had brought up is that she said that she didn't know about the driver's license exchange thing. But yes, France, China have a reciprocal agreement. My home state of California, my adopted home state of California, where I'm a French resident, and of course a U.S. citizen who's a French resident, and I have to renew it. But I have to renew my spousal visa, which is a residence permit for China. But it's a 2-year thing, and it expired, and we got to renew that here before I can go anywhere, or before I can go there. But California does not have the reciprocal agreement, and that's unfortunate. So, there was a comment, John Kamen commented, and I'll be honest, I talked about this on the podcast. I didn't do a lot of Q&A stuff on the podcast, but a few things that either were interesting to me or inspiring or got under my skin. And this was one that got under my skin, I'll be candid. But I have an enlightened perspective thanks to my lovely and kind wife, Susie, who had a very gracious, empathic response to this. So to the residence card drama, John said, your problem, and before I go any further, John, I have to tell you, now, speaking as a middle-aged man, middle-aged white man, as it happens to be, as you appear to be a white man, possibly older than me, there's nothing that most women love more, in my experience, than a middle-aged or older white man telling them what their problem is. Just a little one-on-one advice. But anyway, your problem is that you expect instantaneous response from the French administration. Note 1. I received my French citizenship 2 years after the initial application. Then I had to wait another year for my identity card. For what I can tell, you expect instant reaction to all of your requests. I am retired now, but I had to wait another 2 years before I received my pension. What can you do about it? Chill. I had a lot of feelings when I read that. And I started composing multiple responses, most of which I'm like, well, that's not appropriate for this channel, because it really pissed me off, frankly. But, and I'll tell you what pissed me off, and then tell you where I've come around. So, John, thank you for watching. And if you're watching this, we're glad you're here. And so I'm not trying to call you out in a negative way. I'm trying to be candid and transparent. What got under my skin, it felt like I feel like probably some of the nuance that was clear to us making the video, and apparently the other people who commented didn't get that reaction. You're the only one who there might have been 1,000 people who had that reaction. Well, 1,000 people haven't watched it. Half the people may have felt the same and didn't type a comment, but generally speaking, from what we've seen, people didn't get that take on it. So first of all, it's not an instantaneous response. Um, I talked about this in the podcast. I'm going to be repeating myself because my thought is my thought. So you promise you expect instantaneous response from the French administration? No, bro. It's been a year. It's been a year. It's been 1 year, one calendar year, a year in which, for which I mean, again, it's been a problem of administrative f ups. Okay, with right hand not talking to the left hand, manufacturing error. It's been a series of misadventures where, meanwhile, my wife cannot get a job, cannot drive a car, cannot register for job training, cannot get a vendor permit to sell dumplings at an open market. It's cost us maybe 100,000 euros in the last year plus, between now and what it will be. Maybe not that much. I'm not trying to overstate. We ain't rich and fancy. But my point is, it's cost us significant opportunity cost and just the exponentially unnecessary headaches on top of that. It's been a year, bro. But yeah, we're chill. We're cool. We're cool. So anyway, like I said, we're not trying to call you out in a negative way. That's the part that pissed me off. But then here's the thing. I read this to Susie and I gave her my reaction. And she basically said, please don't write that. Because I had a version of that I had as a draft. I'm like, send. And she basically said, don't send that. I said, oh, okay. And she said, you know what? I think she had a lot of things to say, but it boiled down to, and I can't quote her super accurately or even paraphrase really closely, but she basically said, oh my gosh, that sucks for him. He's still upset from that. He went through a crappy experience. He suffered a couple of times. It took him 2 years to get his French citizenship after his initial application. And by definition, if he got French citizenship, he had done all the qualifying stuff. And it took 2 years to get it. And I imagine the limbo he was in and freaking out and screwing up his life. Probably a lot of things, John. So I feeling that, okay? Then she says, and then he had to wait another 2 years before he started getting his pension. Holy shit. That sucks. What do you do? How do you eat? How do you pay your bills? And so my wife was like, this poor guy. She's like, I want to give him a hug. She said I should interview. She said that we should have you on to interview you. So now that the front end of this, if you hear this at all, hopefully you watch all this to understand the front part is real because that came off a certain way. And the nuance in the video, I think it shows that the reason we started going to like the Maison et Justice et du Droit is because just nothing's happening that's supposed to happen, and it's effing up our lives, bro. And we need this. I've got multiple work projects spinning up, plus the 60 hours a week I do this YouTube channel with us, which doesn't pay a penny yet. We receive zero from this as of now. One day we'll have enough people watching in hours and we get monetized and maybe people buy a coffee or whatever. That's nice. That's not a plea to anybody. I'm just saying, right now this has brought us exactly $0.00 or euros. So, I've got multiple work projects that I'm managing. And, frankly, meanwhile, we live on savings, which are getting kind of thin. So she needs a job. I need some stuff to pop on my end because, as I said, these diapers ain't cheap, right? But we feel your situation. So if you want to be an interview guest, John Kamen, happy to have you. Happy to have you. in the video, if you took another watch of it, I think you'd see that there's a lot of nuance to our position, and we're trying to figure out the right way to do everything, because the systems, as they're modernizing the systems here, but some stuff's still antiquated. It takes a minute to do things, and it takes more than a minute than it seems like it should to do a lot of things. So sometimes you have to poke a little bit. Sometimes you have to help it along, get a little skosh. And that's why the MJDs exist. That's why they're there, to help people with stuff like this. So yeah, we are as chill as we, in all seriousness, we are as chill as we can be. It's just a lot. It's a lot, man. So anyway, we're in good spirits. We laugh. We have a good attitude about this. We love doing this channel. We love talking to people, and we love sharing experiences. And it's, frankly, it's fun for me. It's a lot of work too, but it's fun for me to do these. I do all the production back end of and most of the strategy stuff on this YouTube business for us. And Susie and I collaborate on all the ideas, and we obviously make the videos together. But this is one of my full-time jobs right now. So it's fun because it keeps my hands from being idle, and we know what they say about idle hands. So yeah, John, if you want to be on the podcast, man, holler at me. We'll set up an interview. Whether we air it or not, it's another story. No, just kidding. Sincere invitation. William B. made me laugh. Some bureaucrats don't move until they feel a prick from attack on each cheek. And on behalf of me and Susie, ha 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 ha, too true. Thank you for that. Lori Hines had commented what Susie mentioned in that video. This is for anybody who's watched the video, or anybody who hears this and goes, maybe I need to watch this video. Maybe this applies to me. I'm curious. Susie mentions that there is through one of her social groups. I don't want to say too much, like one of her online chat groups. Back when we were in the initial process of trying to get her application moving, way before going to the MJDs and stuff, somebody in one of her groups said, there's a link you can use that will show you the status of your file before they've updated what you see. You can see internally what they've done at a high level. Now, it's not hacking into their system. It's you have to log in. And let me say this for Lori Hines, anybody else who saw the secret link, right? The secret link about the status of your application processing. When you log into your account, your ANEF account, the Foreigners in France Administration account, once you're logged in, there's a link that you can paste up in the header that's some internal code that is the status of the file. And it literally shows you if it is, unopened, opened. By the time it says approved, once you see the approval on your page, then that says approved. And it's all in French, of course. But you can see if they've at least opened your damn file, because that alone is one of those maddening things about it. You can't do anything to move it along or change it. You're not hacking into the system. It's literally like a non-published code that they use, a non-published link that they have. Obviously, I'm sure this reports to some central database they use to track the status of everything that helps the big France figure out, okay, how fast are applications moving through the system at the various places. That's all it is. It's like a reporting link to give the status. And of course, your file, you're logged in, and then it's spitting out, oh, has that been opened yet? Yes. Oh, has it been processed yet? Has it been opened? Has it been read? Is it being processed? I think is the third option. And then the fourth option is the options are like closed, approved, denied, or further review. And but all in French. They have French short phrases that mean all these things. So that's what it is. And so we're not going to post that link just publicly on a YouTube page, because we don't want France mad at us. They're probably, if anybody gets bent out of shape that we're even saying this much, we may have to edit that part out of the video. So act fast. Going now for the low price of totally free. We also don't want to put an email just publicly out here, because then spammers just overwhelm. And God knows my spam bots on all my accounts are already working overtime. They need a raise. there's a contact page on my website. My personal website, that's also like kind of a filmmaking bios site, is called, it's not my company's, I have two companies. It's not one of my company sites. My personal website is called crazyinagoodway.com, because my belief is, to be in this business that I'm in, you have to be crazy. You have to be a little bit crazy, but hopefully it's in a good way. So crazyinagoodway.com, there's a contact form. Fill that in. That will forward to my email, and then I can reply with the code to you. So if you want that secret code, Lori Hines or anybody else, that's the secret that you must do. By the way, I'm doing a little check on the time. We're at an hour 49 minutes. Wowza. I have talked your and my ears off. I'm going to wrap it up at the 2 hour mark. My goal is to hit stop right before 2. So just so you know, I'm going to wrap this up in less than 10 minutes. And then we have a new viewer, Philippe, who made many comments, some of which basically expressing, I'm guessing Philippe is a man, so I'll say his, expressing his opinion. But one thing he says is, as far as I know, uh, uh, you know, it's basically some comments that even French don't like their administration. So our comments about the administration, he's basically saying French people don't like it. And then he has some sort of anti-US, anti-China stuff. It's to be fair, it's anti-current occupant of the White House, which we're brothers in arms on that belief. That's we're both not fans of the current situation. The China stuff, yeah, I used to do an entire podcast series and have a consultancy in Beijing with a Chinese partner talking about East-West relations and understanding China, called How China Works. The archives of that podcast are all on my personal YouTube, which is the Brendan K. Davis channel. It's linked here on the site for other things. So if you're curious to really dig deep, if you're curious to learn more, like a more nuanced perspective on China, you can get it there. I'm not a China apologist. I'm not a fan of the government either, just straight up. But I also don't know how you manage 1.5 billion people, almost. Above my pay grade, bro. I'm an independent filmmaker living in the suburbs of Paris, but I appreciate your comments. And he commented about the craziness about sending the National Guard into cities in the U.S. No, it's absolutely insane, and it's a attempted fascist authoritarian takeover of the United States. That's what it is, and it's time for people to quit pretending otherwise, because that's actually what it is, and I'm not down with it. But I don't know kung fu or how to operate the appropriate mechanisms of power personally. I mean, I have theories like everybody, but my theories are about as good as most people's theories. Unlike most people, I'm not just going to talk about them endlessly, because I got other stuff to do, man. I got a baby that needs to be fed and played with and loved, and a wife and a career and a life, and I don't live there. And I hope they don't get rid of mail-in voting, because I vote by absentee, and my shit's in early. I mean, it's the happiest day. I mean, I do absentee balloting. I used to get absentee ballot at the U.S. Embassy in China and vote remotely when I lived there. I get it here, and I get it sent to me from the U.S. in Paris, but I go get it at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. I mean, I'm a proud ass American, just not proud of the government at the moment. So I've said all you need to know about me in that regard for now. Listen to the podcast if you want a little bit more unfiltered take on it. This last one didn't go much deeper than that, but generally speaking, that's where I'll let it hang out a little bit more. So Zeitgeist 888, auspicious number for Chinese folk. If you lose an 8, it resonates with the wrong kind of people, but that's another story. It also resonates with Asians for good reasons and for other people for bad reasons. But nonetheless, Zeitgeist, excuse me, a little gassy. Too much information. I thought so. Zeitgeist 888 says, we're moving to France next year and look forward to hearing about regular people's journeys and experiences. This is to our Why We Moved to France video. Thank you so much. I told them this on the replies. Thank you so much, Zeitgeist. Glad to have you here. And I asked, what would you like? Because I welcome they came in on the Why We Moved to France video, or that's the one they commented on. And so I asked them, what else would you like to hear about? And they gave us a great list. Things I'd like to know more about. Your experiences are meeting new friends, both expats and French, getting driver's licenses, noted, finding a place to live, but temporary, more permanent, referenced a little bit today, learning French, a bunch of videos on that, adapting to French culture, more coming on that, surprises and what you would do differently with hindsight. That's a video that we've been trying to get our heads around for a minute. The look back, what to do differently. We do have a and they also say also French food you like and US or Chinese food in France that you make or found at restaurants. Well, we have our East West collab version of Hot Pot that we do, which is our version of that. There are some amazing Chinese restaurants in Paris. I've been to precisely 3 of them. There are many. Everyone was good. One was excellent. One was insanely excellent. I forget the name. I went there on a business meeting with my partner from Northern California, the Niners guy. That was some years ago, but I'll have to ask him. Actually, he'd asked me to dig it. I'm the producer. He's the director. I have to dig it up and find it in my notes. But that place was awesome. It's kind of fancy. It's kind of proud of itself, but I understood it. I mean, like the prices were like, you go to a good restaurant in Beijing, that would be expensive for Beijing, but it's still like a third the cost of what this was or less. Anyway, I want to address the question here. Things you do in hindsight. So Susie and I have a topic that we're evolving. We have this bucket. We have all these, we track all this stuff, these ideas and what we want to do versus what we think is maybe the thing to do. We're not trying to second guess YouTube too much, but we're seeing what people like and what people like you ask questions about. So we're trying to address those things and reprioritize. So one of the things we have is things you should and should not bring to France. And part of the debate is, and we both have our own lists of both things. We don't want to make one gigantic video because a lot of times when you say, do not bring this thing, but instead do this. So it sort of covers the should and should not in one video. And we will alternate, like me talking about a thing, right? 2 of us together to say, hi, here's what we're doing. Then when we shoot it, it'll be all me, my stuff, and then all her stuff, and then I'll cut it so it bounces back and forth and it's entertaining. It's not visual fatigue. And just visual or audio fatigue where you see and hear us both throughout the thing and find a way to make it kind of flow. But we might do it side by side, so it's conversation. But that's a to be determined thing. This is a developmental idea. But we have an extensive list of those things, and that relates to what you would do differently. Some of it is things you would definitely not go to the trouble to bring here. Daniel, don't bring your piano. You know that already. But, Daniel's like, bring a piano because, that's not a hindsight thing. That's a foresight thing. But so that's a list. And being as candid as I can, because we thought about that question that Zeitgeist just asked, really specifically related to this kind of lighter topic of things you should or shouldn't bring to France. For a move is the framing. If you're a visitor, there's stuff you want to bring that you don't want to bring to move, and vice versa. But what we do differently, the main thing we would do differently is knowing what we know now. We would have. There's some things we just had no way of knowing. There are things we discovered about the healthcare system, and with the pregnancy, there were 2 ways to avoid getting our reimbursements denied. The details of which we'll get there on video. We'll do a whole video about that. When it comes to a final decision, either yay, we got reimbursed, or no, boo, we're out 8,000 euros. We'll never get back. Because that's about what the reimbursement would be if they approve the damn thing. For all the soup to nuts, the whole thing, it's about 8,000 euros that we don't have in our pockets. So anyway, enjoy, citizens of France. You have 8,000 euros in the rest of your system for other people. So nonetheless, way after the fact, and I searched when they told us this in one of these refusal, we went through multiple rounds of appeal, rejection, like ratcheting up, and we're at the 4th level now. There are only technically like 6 levels. There are only 2 more ways we go from here. The MJD is where we are now. Well, actually, there's a level below that. We're doing two things simultaneously. That's its own story. When it amounts to something, I'll tell you. But right now, we're in a two-pronged appeal process. One through the Commission Resolution Amiable, the CRA. One is with the MJD putting their boot in somebody's butt. Hopefully, the two things will yield. Hopefully, the two of those will be successful. But once we got one of these rejections, oh well, what you should have done is before you going in the hospital, file this certain form, do this certain thing, or when you're in the hospital, but before having birth, you do this. I have searched extensively on the French official website. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm telling you that I couldn't find it. And I'm pretty good with operating a search. And I now am a power user of ChatGPT who is pretty, once in a while hallucinates something totally random and off the wall, but usually is really good at that sort of, let me really dig and scour the earth for that little tidbit of information. It may get everything else about it wrong, but it'll find you the information typically. So anyway, what I do differently, Zeitgeist, is if I had the time machine and could go back, I would have done these things we had to do to make sure that the pregnancy would have been reimbursed. But what's more applicable to, generally speaking, is you are not eligible when you have relocated, when you've moved here on a residence visa. You are not eligible on a long stay visa. You're not eligible until you've been here 3 months to submit for the insurance. Do not delay 1 millisecond. I would have all the forms ready to go. And the minute that it strikes past 3 months to the microsecond, I would send all that stuff in, date everything for the day, the day after it's been exactly 3 calendar months, send all your stuff in and get in the system as soon as you can. We'll talk about the details of our situation. We waited about 6 weeks because I thought this project was going to start and we'd have an HR department with an admin to do this for us. And our situation would have been different. I would have been on a salary through our French subsidiary, our French middleman company. I would have been on a French salary, this and that and the other. I would have had HR taking care of all this crap for us, which smooths the process, makes it happen quickly. And there was this lingering delay, and basically the project got delayed then because we found out we were not going to be able to get any shooting permits for last year because of the Olympics. And the Olympics were awesome and great for Paris, great for France, great for the world. All the conversation from uneducated people who don't know basic Art 101 history and overreacted to things they did not understand and thought it was blasphemy and Last Supper. Well, you're idiots. You're not watching this channel because you're smarter than that. But it was a great litmus test for, did somebody have art history 101 at a community college or better? Because that's my formal art education doesn't go much deeper than that, and I got pretty much all the references. The few that had to be explained to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I read that. That was in my book, Anywho, I digress, as I want to do when I've been talking for so damn long. I rolled over 2 hours. A few people are still hanging on. I'm wrapping it up here. So yeah. So I'll detail this at the appropriate time in the appropriate video. Sounded like I heard big footsteps holding a little pair of feet walking down the stairs. I think I'm mistaken. So yeah, what we do differently is we get in the damn healthcare system without delay. And that'll make your life a lot easier. And I'll have more things to add to that. So guys, that's a good question. Somebody mentioned they're learning French with Lingoda and thought it was a little too fast with their sprints and everything. And so they basically really enjoyed Susie's Alliance Française video, and they recommend the Learn French with Dylan and Learn French with Alexa are great channels. You got 2 from me, 4 thumbs up from the Davis household on those channels. Life Expanded, thank you for sharing your experience about the residence card. Happy to share Life Expanded. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully if you watch this, if you made it far enough, you know that I talked about a few things that are also relevant to that. Lisa Nazarian, I love Roaming Retirement's channel, commenting on the podcasts that went up. We do have a few folks who really are into the podcast. Love Roaming Retirement's channel. Us too. Looking forward to the interview. I think you'll like it. I'll finish it tonight. It'll be out on Friday. Hope everyone in your household is feeling better. Thank you. We are. We're tired. Me and Susie are tired, but we're always tired. We're parents of a toddler. We're always damn tired. So last comment before we say goodbye. Vane Fromage, aka Daniel, he of the recording studio full of equipment that has to be dealt with to move to France. Daniel of the housing and insurance questions, Daniel. He's only commented that he's a huge 49er fan since Joe Montana and Jerry Rice days. He went to Stanford back then. And I'm afraid the Sunday games took priority over many of my engineering studies. Go Niners. So go Niners, Daniel. Go Niners, man. All right. So look, I'm going to wrap it up here because Lord knows if you're still here, I've kept you a long time. I hope you enjoyed what we had to talk about today. Thank you for your questions and all the engagement. We read everything. We really try to respond to everything. Once in a while, there's a comment that leaves me kind of speechless. I don't know what to say. So I'll just go like, and then it's all I can do. And then a few that I just can't interpret because they read once in a while. There's a question that just the translated version, whether it's the computer translating or whether someone appreciate non-native English speakers watching, that's amazing, or non-French, French speakers. But some people are watching from a language that isn't translating properly into the English. And so I'm not sure what you say. So I like that you commented, but I don't know if I liked your comment because I can't figure out what the hell you're talking about. Don't forget, Friday is our premiere. Do I have guests coming in?
No, I'm coming for vacuum machine.
Okay, yeah, I'm almost done. I've just done an epic live. Will you come wave at people so you know that I'm not keeping you in a box? Okay, all right. So Susie's coming downstairs to get the vacuum cleaner. I thought she was coming down with Jenny. I promise Susie will live. Do you hear her stomping up the stairs? Yeah, Susie's alive and well. She's just being mama right now, and she's about to be mama with a vacuum cleaner. So before that happens and you hear the baby scream and the vacuum cleaner, thank you again. I appreciate all the questions and engagement with us. It means a lot to us. It's glad to not feel alone. I'll address the questions. We'll do a whole video of making friends and stuff. Several people have asked that, not just the comment that I read earlier. But it's really important. This is a great, we're trying to build a virtual community here. Don't forget that Friday, the premiere of the Roaming Retirement interview at noon Paris time. You're going to really enjoy it. Todd and Brandy are really nice people, really cool, really sweet. They got a good story. I think it's very relatable to a lot of people. Even if it's not relatable to you specifically, it's nice. It's a cool interview. Their channel's great. Go check out Roaming Retirement. They have some really nice videos. Sunday, Healthcare in France versus US video. I'll see you in the comments. We'll see you next week for another live in theory plus podcast and other things. You can check out the links for everything if you'd like to, buy us a coffee. Last little plug for that. Thank you for being here on behalf of my better half and the other little lady in my life. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time.